Alright, we're back here with the third video on positioning. So far we've covered float, we've covered absolute, and now we're going to talk about relative. And we're going to talk about one more called fixed. Okay, so we'll get into that. Also, in case you haven't gotten some of these things as for terms of positioning, we're going to cover a lot of positioning when I go to actually create my layout. So you'll see me work through my thought process on my layout through the HTML and the CSS. And in case there was something you missed, you'll see me working with floats for navigation and absolute positioning for other items. So you'll see all this work again, so don't worry too much in case you missed something. By all means, though, if you did miss something or there's something you didn't understand, please post it to the forums and I'll do my best to answer the questions for you. Alright, so back here in my code, it's the same example that we've been using. I just went ahead and reset my logo back to its original position here. Okay. And there is one more type of actually positioning we should talk about, which is static, and I mentioned it on the class website. Static just means it's going to appear in the position that it is in the HTML. So if this sidebar comes after this content, it's going to appear after it in the flow of the document. It's just the default for how the browser displays the elements in a particular order. So you could leave it out, you could add it if you needed to for some reason, but it's the default, so no need to worry about that. Alright, so I'm going to talk about the next type of positioning here, and we're going to use the exact same property that we used before, which was position. And I'm going to make this one relative. Okay. Now we're going to go see what happened to this in our layout here. And this logo here is what I've applied the relative positioning to. Okay, and something's gonna happen similar to what happened with the absolute, where when we set something to relative, we can position it in pixels. We can move this wherever we want, but the lower box there, that orange box, is gonna respect that area. It's not gonna move in and fill it. So it doesn't take this item out of the normal flow. The logo will not be removed from the normal flow of the document. It's gonna contain that space. Okay. So that's still going to appear there. But relative works similar to the absolute, where you could also give it a position in terms of pixels. So I'm going to set this from the top and from the left here. Okay. And I'm going to refresh. And my logo's moved over 80 pixels and down 200 or whatever it was, or over 200 and down 80. And it's not from the corner of the green, and it's not from the corner of the browser. When I set something to relative, this 80 pixels and the 200 pixels are coming from where this logo would have been originally, so somewhere right about there. Okay, so it's a little confusing because you're saying, well, in positioning something relative to something else. You're not. You're positioning something relative to where it would have been originally in the flow of the document. So this logo normally would have appeared a little below that top left corner of the green box, right about there. So relative to where it would have been originally is where it's counting those pixels. Okay, and you'll notice that the orange box below it didn't move up, so it's containing that space. So you might ask yourself, well, why would I ever need to do that and leave this green space here empty? That almost seems useless. Well, it's not completely useless, although I will say relative is probably used less in design than in absolute and float positioning. But you know, design styles change all the time, and someone might find a really nifty way to use relative. You might find a really nifty reason why you might want to use relative positioning. So it's just good to know. Okay, so it's good to have that as an option. So that's relative positioning. Again, major difference: relative positioning contains the space it originally would have in the web browser. Right, this green space stays there. Absolute positioning, the box below it, this orange box, would have moved up to fill that space. And again, relative to where it would have been in the flow, not from the top of the document.